Hey guys, welcome back to Ultimate S&S. So what I'm doing here behind me is the quail that were brooding in this box now been moved out to the grow out box. And that's just a place for them to get large enough. And it's close enough where they can be introduced to the flock. So I'll take the females and introduce them in as layers. And then the males, I'll count how many females I have total and go with a one male to every 5 female ratio, but I typically go one male for every 4. They tend to breed a little better that way. So what I did is I just took this brooder behind me here. See if I can get that in shot. I should have brought a tripod, guys. Um, I'm just going to take in, this has been washed out, it's been bleached and all that good stuff. So what I'm doing now is just adding new flake. So all you do is take your brick of flake. As you can see, I went with the larger pine chunks. The last bag of this I bought, guys, I was a little disappointed because it's supposed to be the large bedding flakes, but it ended up being very fine. And it's pretty much pointless to use that for your birds. I can usually get a couple of broods out of one of these bricks. I ended up just turning it into bedding for the run. And all you're doing is you're just putting a, inch to a half inch to an inch layer in here, guys. And again, I apologize for not bringing a tripod out. I was kind of out giving the chicks some treats and figured I'd come in and finish this off, and just grabbed a camera real quick. It'd be easier to just dump this bedding, guys, but like I said, didn't bring the tripod. So the reason you don't want to use fine flakes for this, and I'm telling you from personal experience, your chicks, they don't really know how to differentiate what's food and what's not food, and they will typically try to eat the pine flake. If it's the larger pieces like this, guys, they're not going to be able to eat that. But that real fine, shredded up, almost sawdust stuff that I ended up getting from the local feed store, it was supposed to be the large flakes for bedding. They will eat it and they will choke, and I ended up losing a few quail. I figured we'd try it, even though I'd heard warnings on it, so that was definitely on me. So I pulled it out pretty quick and used up what I had left of the larger flake, and using some hay and stuff to finish that brood off. So now that we're warming up, some of the questions we typically get is how long should your quail remain in brood? We're going to answer that right here as soon as I'm done here, which is almost finished. Okay, so how long do I brood my quail for? Well, it depends on the time of the year that it is, guys. So if you're into summer, like we're coming into what we call spring, we don't really have a spring here. We're coming up, it's 80 degrees, 60 degrees at night, stuff like that. So we don't have those cold snaps that you get up north. Typically around 2 weeks, your birds are pretty much feathered. They might have a few of their juvenile feathers not on their heads yet. And if you're not getting below 60, you can move them on out to the grow out pen at that point. Within 2.5 to 3 weeks, they're fully feathered. Move them on out. And by then you should be having your netch hatch coming out. It takes about 18 days to hatch your quail. So try to space where your quail are coming in and out. Now with the chickens, I had to come in about, to begin with, is about once every couple weeks and add bedding to this. With the quail, they don't poop as much. They don't typically eat as much as a chicken, so they're not producing as much waste. Now the more you have, this rule is going to kind of, change as you are brooding larger numbers and stuff. But typically I can come in at about a week and a half in, I'll put another layer in, about a half inch to quarter inch, somewhere around in there, a bedding on top of that. And they're just good to move around, do their business. And by the time you're finishing up with that, you should be around that 2.5, 3 week mark. Move your quail to your grow out. Do not put them in with the adult birds. You want to grow out pen that's nearby so they can see each other, they can hear each other, and kind of get used to seeing and smelling and different things like that, the birds, and it becomes part of their flock, whatever side of your cage you're moving them to. Then you just move them in, and you want to kind of monitor them through the day, make sure that there's no bullying going on, that the adult birds are not pecking them in the head stuff, because they could potentially kill them. I've not had that happen yet. I've never taken to just throw birds in though, so that's something to think about. But by the time this is done, it takes 18 days. and I've got a new batch of quail coming in. So if I still have a few birds in here that are getting larger and they're within that 2-week mark, I just go ahead and I put the new ones in with them after about 24 hours. And I keep them indoors for the first 24 hours. And I just set up a full spectrum light and make sure they're getting food or getting their water. They get used to how to get their water. They're not climbing their waters and drowning and things like that. You don't want to keep real deep water stations either. And by the time I move them out here, it's about time for the other quail to go to the grow out pen. Now, as we start coming into May and June, and it's going to be more like 70 degrees at night, after 2 weeks, they move straight out. I don't see any problem moving them out after a couple weeks, as long as you're not getting below that 70 mark. By 2 weeks, they should be sitting around 70 degrees. I typically do not use this heat lamp during the day out here. There's nothing in there, so I'm definitely shutting that off. Now, when they first start up, you want it about 100 degrees. So if you're looking at weather that's, pushing 100 degrees in the shed, so you can put a thermostat out here. And if the indoor weather is the temperature in here is high, you don't even need that light. That's just keeping them warm. Now, you might have to come out and kick it on in the evening if you're still getting some 60s and 70s for those first couple weeks. But they adjust very quickly. Quail are probably one of the easiest things to raise that I've experienced. The chickens, they were pretty nice. Like I say, this brood box, I would not recommend using something that size for more than maybe 6 chickens. The reason I say that is the ones that I got was I ordered 10 birds. I figured half would make it. They all made it plus an extra one, so I had 11 birds. And right around that 5-week mark, they were too big. They were climbing up or flying up, landing on the side of this brooder, which was fine because it gives them some room so they're not so crowded in there. But I had one of my roosters, he was coming out and he was like pooping on everything in the shed, which was kind of a hassle. So the fewer birds you have in there, you could lay your mesh and stuff or whatever kind of screen material you're going to use. I wouldn't use bird netting, they'll get hung up in that. But you can lay a screen up there and it keeps them from jumping up. Or if you don't care if they poop on the shed, let them do what the heck they're doing. And I moved those guys out. It was about 6.5 weeks is when they ended. I think it was right on at 6 weeks. I moved them outside. They've been outside ever since. And they seem to have adjusted that pretty good. We've had a couple of nights that dropped around 42. And I just go out and kind of check on them once or twice a night. And everybody was huddled up on the roosting poles. Seemed to be doing good. So hope you're enjoying the videos. If you're interested in learning more about kind of what is happening in the world, definitely check in to our biblical messages and our playlist. So we're currently doing a study over here, which is going to be started in Matthew. Well, technically we started in Genesis. Matthew is our most recent one, and I'm loading up some things today from an introduction into Revelation. And it's going to be a comprehensive study as we get into it, where we're going to be going throughout the entire Bible, guys. So, and we're looking at what to expect in these end days. And when you start to see the way that the world's headed and what the Bible says about where we're headed as well, I think it's going to wake you up and you're going to start doing a little prepping. You probably start wanting to keep a few livestock and things like that for your family around as well. And if nothing else, they are a joy to have around. It's nice to go out and mess with the chickens and stuff throughout the day. But everyone have a wonderful week.